This podcast contains content that is graphic in nature and mature language that may be unsuitable for children or young listeners. Listener discretion is advised. On the evening of Valentine's Day 1975, a couple was making their way through a remote section of Highway 23 that followed along the Mississippi River, around 16 miles south of Belle Chasse, Louisiana, in Plaquemines Parish. They were on their return trip and had left at around 5:25. A few hours later, at around 11:30 p.m., they noticed something white peeking through the trees. To their horror, they found the body of a teenage boy hanging from a persimmon tree. This was the strange and mysterious journey that to this day has yet to be solved. Join us now for episode 34, The Boy in the Tree. Hey guys, I'm Kelly, and this is the very special Halloween month because if you know me at all, you know my favorite holiday of the year is absolutely, without a doubt, Halloween. So we don't celebrate Halloween, we celebrate Halloween month. And for that, although I am apologizing in advance and for all time, apparently every time, for the rest of the month, every Wednesday, we will have Wicked Wednesday with the Sin-Law podcast, which means we'll bring you a new spooky story straight from the heart of Louisiana. So, without further ado, let's get into today's story. And for you guys are in for a very special treat today. If you've ever listened to the very end of my podcast, which I hope you have, I hope you listened to the whole episode. But at the very, very end, you hear a voice. Every single episode, bonus, not bonus, any episode you listen to. Yeah, you can go right now. Go listen. Go pick an episode, any episode. At the very end, you hear a voice. And that voice says something like,
"This has been an Elf audio production."
That's right, guys. Embree is actually going to be joining us for this episode. And before you get too judgy, she has been begging and begging, like I've said before, to be on an episode. So I figure we're going to do these spooky ones for Halloween. They're a little bit lighter, not as terrible, although today's episode is still accompanied by a trigger warning because anytime we talk about any kind of suicide or mental health issues, we want to make sure that everybody knows that there are resources out there. There are people that love you, and we're here to listen if no one else is. So keeping that in mind, Embree, hey!
What's up, Sin-Law fam?
Hey, so today you're going to be joining us for the story, right? She is completely clueless. So
Yeah,
she knows a little bit. I mean, you know a little bit because I've talked about it a couple times now to different people. So we are going to jump right in because this started way back before I was even born. I know that's super old, right?
Very old.
Yeah. So you don't even know what the 19s were. You were born in the 20s. Anyway. Today's episode is very sad because I didn't realize that we, as a state, as a whole, we have a ton of unsolved cases, which I've talked about in a couple of our episodes with Eugene Bonfontaine and the unsolved murder of Jimmy Townsend. If you haven't listened to those, go give those a listen. But what makes this one different is he chose to be unknown. He chose to have his mark left on the world as someone who would not be named. And it's absolutely bizarre. So we're going to get into it right now. Embree, are you ready?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, here we go. I think that's the first time she said yes, ma'am to me in a year. So Valentine's Day. What month is that in?
February.
Beautiful. What else is special about February?
It's your birthday on February 2nd.
No, you always get it wrong. That's not my birthday. Either way. Okay, so let's get serious for a second.
4th.
All right, so it is February 4th. Okay, so this couple are just moseying down, having a good drive, and this is completely shattered when they come across the body of a young boy, 16, 17 years old, hanging from a persimmon tree off the side of the highway. Now, there is very little information because, again, 1975, things have been lost over time. But what we do know about him was he was around 6 feet tall, about 160 pounds. He was white. He was between 16 and 17 years old, and he also had slightly protruding front teeth. He was wearing, get this, a maroon and yellow long-sleeved Puritan shirt and blue arrow pants with a brown belt. Now, if you don't know what those are, I didn't know what those were. I've got pictures. Go to my website. Thank you. He had a cleaning number, DD44, was found in the pants. So like a dry cleaner's number, basically. And a comb was found in his pocket. He also had one gray sock and one blue sock on. But he did not have any shoes. He was hanging from a bed sheet that he had tied into a slip knot. Now, they ruled his death a suicide, and the moss found on his clothes was the same as the moss on the tree, so it proved that he had climbed the tree to hang the sheet. So the other part that led it to be a suicide was there was also a note. Yeah. Huh? Say it into the microphone.
Can I read the note?
Well, it's kind of hard, but I mean, like, if you want to try it, you absolutely can. Okay. So the note was a huge point of focus because that was really the only evidence that anybody had of who this guy was, where he came from, or anything, any kind of hint or clue about who he could be. Now, his is even more interesting. You know, the message in a bottle, like people throwing a message in a bottle out in the ocean or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy, he put his suicide note into a jar, sealed it up, and leaned it up against the tree. Okay? He took really special care to make sure the note was left under the tree.
That's crazy.
Now, if you need to take a break or anything, just let me know. I can edit, whatever. So you can start with the first part and just read a snippet. This is the very beginning. And there's only... I'll have this picture on my website. There's only one section of the note that still is in existence to this day because the rest of it has been lost to time or however you want to look at it. But the actual handwriting and everything, you can look at it on the website and see the sample of how well, I mean, he was obviously very well educated. But anyway, go ahead, Embree. Take it away.
All right. Mom and Dad, I feel like I have acted very
methodically
and coolly in my actions and my words. It is best if I cease to live quietly than risk that later I will break and shatter by violence or eager years under care.
Linger years under care.
I never did develop into a real person, and I cannot tolerate that the false and empty existence I have created.
Okay, so just from the very opening lines there, we can tell this was a very troubled young boy. He obviously had some issues, more than just one, and it's really sad because he... obviously, like I said, he's obviously very well spoken. He's very well educated, but he feels like he's not real. Like he's not a real person, and that he doesn't have any hope to continue forward in life, and that he would rather end it now than possibly grow into something that is dangerous to the rest of his family and the people he loves and to the world, which is pretty insightful and scary to have inside your mind as a 16, 17-year-old. I mean, that's a tough time as it is. So you get the picture of that just from that little bit in the very beginning. He also says that he I'm gonna like quick it here because the note's pretty decently long. If you want to read it in full, I'll have it posted. But he addresses different people throughout the note. He puts in his note that if whoever finds it should see a psychiatrist so that they could understand his death and his life and ask about what he was, and that the person, his family, is what we assume, will see that it's not tragic that I am gone, but more natural than if I had continued. And then he addresses a section to the police. These have hard words, baby. You're bound to preserve domestic peace and order. If you pursue who I was and spend hundreds of dollars, you will accomplish little. There are no legal consequences of my death or any kind of entanglements. All All that can happen is you will shatter the domestic peace and order of 2 innocent lives. Do not deprive them of their hope that their missing son will return. Let it be as if I wasn't ever here. Simply cremate me as John Doe. Then there's another section which almost makes me cry. Why you should not feel responsible. And then, just a second, baby. He also, again, very well educated. He cites the works of a well-known, I believe it was a psychiatrist, sociologist, one of those. I'll have to go look it up. But anyway, he cites the work of Emil Durkheim. And according to The Boy in the Tree, he defines suicide as an inner direction of homicidal feelings against someone else. So apparently, according to the boy, and from what we can surmise from the note, he was having killer thoughts. Like he was thinking about killing somebody or somebody else. And so instead of doing that, he just decided to kill himself. And then by not releasing his name or who he is and telling the police not to try to find out who he is, he's saying my parents will always be able to hold out that hope that I'm still alive. So don't take that from them. Don't let them know that I'm dead, basically, is what he's saying, so they don't have to go through that sadness. Which I don't know which is worse. I've talked to people that have had both, and they seem okay. Neither of those situations are okay. So the next part, it's talking about him being a bum, that he should never marry or have children. He does not want to bother anyone and just limp through life. He's very self-centered. And then the very end, it's really sad because he directs his sentence directly to his parents. And Embree, do you want to read that part there at the end, Mom and Dad?
Yeah. Mom and Dad, you have provided me excellent
advantageous
and privileges and experience. I have really led more of my life than many others have ineligible. I am extremely grateful for all of your sacrifices, time, and support. I am now repaying you with an ignorant act.
A what?
Ignorant.
Let me see. With an arrogant
act. In this light, I do see it as a criminal. I can only hope that I see that it was me who caused it.
So basically saying again that they shouldn't feel responsible if they ever do find out that he's dead and that he committed suicide. So that's it. That's all we have. We know he was 6 foot, that he had brown hair, that he was white, he was 16, 17 years old, he was very well educated, we can see his handwriting. They actually did a artist reconstruction, like when somebody's doing an eyewitness reconstruction and they draw it out. They did the same thing, but with John Doe. And you can see that picture on the website as well. I mean, like, he looks like a pretty decent looking guy. I mean, like, he doesn't look like he was, like, he didn't have,
It looks like he has, like, a kind of like a double chin. That's what I see.
No, butt chin. He's got the dimple in his chin, yeah. And yeah, I totally see that, yeah. But I mean, like, there's no grotesque figuring or anything like that, so I don't know. And that doesn't say just because you don't have, symmetrical features that you're going to be upset with yourself. No, that's not what I mean. What I mean is that, like, he kind
of looks like Squidward for his chin. Kind of.
Not even a little bit. He kind of looks like one of the Beatles, honestly.
No.
So you don't even know who the Beatles are, hush. So they did, regardless of the fact that he said, please don't spend money and try and look because you're never going to figure it out, which we haven't. So he was right, obviously. They still tried to figure out who he was. They did an autopsy. But the doctor, Dr. Frank Minard, who did the autopsy, he was a gynecologist. That's a lady doctor. That's not a doctor of dead bodies. That's a lady doctor. So he did the autopsy. The fingerprints of his were sent to D.C., but no match was found. The sketch was done and put out in the papers. He was embalmed. His body was embalmed and kept in Algiers, Louisiana, at a funeral home for viewing. The search for his identity was a national story that was covered by 300 plus newspapers all across the country, and equally as many families came to Plaquemines Parish to see if John Doe could be their missing son. But no one ever identified him. No, he was never identified as the missing loved one of any of those families. So there were a couple that were more likely or more significant that they thought it was a better chance of being. One of them was the family of Charles Wallace Jr. They came all the way from Tennessee to see if our Plaquemine John was their missing loved one. Charles, he was 19 at the time he disappeared from Memphis. He was in a home for teenagers with drug problems. His mom did confirm, though, that the John Doe in Plaquemine Parish was not her son. However, the charts for their dental structure, like their teeth impressions and junk, they matched. But that's not an exact science. They've pretty much proved that at this point, that because our mouths are constantly changing, it's not something that you can go off of, as well as like DNA, right? So after a good while, this was in February 14th when he was discovered. On June 12th, 1975, his body was starting to decompose, so the search was then called off. He was buried. Allegedly, he was buried in an unmarked grave in Woodlawn Cemetery, which was bought out by another funeral home in the 90s. And the deputy that was in charge of the case, he was upset and said, "I wish we could have found the real parents. Now they'll never know." And then nothing much really has happened since then. The case kind of fell into obscurity. The people who like, I live here and I never knew this was a thing. I didn't know that we had somebody from 1975 that had never been identified. The boy in the tree, like, it blew my mind when I saw this pop up when I was looking specifically for spooky Louisiana based stories. I had a couple in mind, but I didn't have enough, so I had to go digging for some more. And this one just kind of fell into my lap, and it's just absolutely bonkers. But it gets even more twisted. What's up?
I have a question.
I have an answer.
Did he have shoes?
Apparently not. We're going to get into that here in just a minute, okay?
But,
keep that thought in mind.
But if he did, where did his shoes go?
Right, but see, they didn't really make mention of the fact if his socks were dirty or if they were just, if they were ragged or if they had holes in them, if he had been walking the whole time in just socks. We don't know. But we'll come to that. Give me just a sec. So somewhere between the 1990s and the early 2000s, the records of the John Doe case were lost because of a dang old hurricane. Always blamed a hurricane. So that also means that now no one knows where John Doe was buried. They have no way of actually locating his grave because all the records were gone and lost in a hurricane. So around about 2005, the web sleuth armchair detectives, they started a forum on the case, and it now has over 47 pages, probably more by now. It's probably closer to 50 to 60, about this young man in Plaquemines Parish, and they have gathered what they believe to be proof that he was here and contacted authorities. So they were able to track down the plot location from the original funeral owner's home record. So the new funeral home was asked if they could tell us where John Doe was buried. However, they said they couldn't do it because they could only release it to law enforcement. So when the web sleuths gave the information to law enforcement, they contacted, when they tried to give them the information, they didn't really care. They had little to no interest. He's been buried. It's been over 50 years. Why bother? So the only people that are interested are people like us that create podcasts about stories that have been lost and to keep them in front of everybody. He's actually still listed on the National Missing and Unidentified Person System, which is where they list every person ever that has been missing or lost and found. So basically, if they have a John Doe or a Jane Doe, we learned what that meant, right? So if they have either of those, they put them in this national database so that if by some miracle they get some that match up, or this person matches this description, maybe this is the lost loved one, they have ways of, putting those side by side and keeping all those records in one spot. So the only crappy part is that he wasn't added until June of 2022. Now, this is where we get into the a little bit conspiracy theory-ish, because there should be a lot, right? There should be not any theories in theory, but there are a few as to why or who maybe he was. Now, the why he ended his own life, they have a couple of guesses. Some people think he was a sociopath, and by that they mean that he was born evil, like he was born to have this idea of violence in his mind, and he wanted to remove himself from the world so that he didn't hurt anyone. But that doesn't sound like a sociopath in my mind. Like, true sociopaths, they live for that. So they live for that. He wouldn't kill himself. So likely not a sociopath. However, the crime side of it, like having the belief that maybe he did commit a crime and he was worried about doing it again, or he was so guilt-ridden because of what he did that was bad that he didn't ever want to do anything like that again, taking his own life and not shaming his parents. I buy that one 100%. So maybe he said breaking and shattering by violence in his letter, and it could also mean that he hadn't done it yet but was thinking about it. I don't know, but very likely. However, the big one, I think, are the theories of the mental health disorders and a possible spectrum, autism spectrum, somewhere in there. Obviously, in the 70s, that wasn't a big, it wasn't as widely accepted as it is now. Now it's kind of understood that that's a thing, and we talk about it, we embrace it, and we try to work towards it being inclusive of all things, all people, all. And also, the same thing could be said about mental health. That's not something that was especially not for males back then. It was, men don't cry, you keep it inside, you don't tell anybody, what is a therapist, yada, yada, yada. So those are really good, in my opinion. Those are two of the most likely reasons, either a mental health disorder / borderline sociopathy, and that kind of leads into it. But the other really big one obviously comes with, same as, not really accepting or being understanding of mental health in the same way that they weren't accepting of anybody that was gay. So anybody from the LGBTQ plus, whatever it is now, I forget. I'm sorry, no offense. I don't know what they are. But being gay in the 70s was extremely just taboo. You don't talk about it. If it is, it is, but like, don't bring it up. Pretend to not be, like, very straight and narrow, not to be punny.
Very serious.
Yeah, you didn't let anybody else know that you're gay. It was very shameful to do it if you were, and then your entire family was shamed for it. So, I mean, that is also a very good theory as to why he would have tried to keep from shattering and breaking his family because of that. So, that there's no way to know for sure, because he was vague, if detailed but vague. So, we'll never really know. So, the one specific thing I'm sorry, there's a couple, actually. There were a couple people that they thought it might be. And there are a couple names that got thrown around. Ooh, excuse me. All right, skip that part. But yeah, there was a couple names that got thrown around. Embree, do you know either of those?
The Bayard cousins.
Bayard cousins? What about them?
There is a possibility that John Doe could have some from kind of conversation therapy program as
conversion therapy.
Conversion therapy.
Oh, okay. So that's also a gay thing. So people back in the day, if you were thought to be gay, they would send you off and try to basically brainwash you and convince you that you weren't. So they would send you somewhere that would basically, you'd wake up in the morning, you're not gay, you're straight. And that's what they would do all day long and beat it into your head that you weren't gay and that you were straight. And that was like, they were trying to converse. They were trying to get you to believe yourself that you were straight. So they believed that the Baynard cousins may have been, there were talks of that. Was that what it says?
Says like could have some conversation therapy.
Conversion therapy. Let me see.
I was like,
okay, so he may have come from some kind of therapy program, and as those were starting to get popular around that same time, he may have escaped from there and then ended up and just decided to take his own life. Maybe. So, Embree, you wanted to talk about his shoes, though, right?
yes.
The area where he was found. Now, I didn't talk about it much, but I want to touch on it a little bit here. Belle Chase in Plaquemine Parish. Obviously, if you're in Louisiana, I live here. I didn't know where the hell it was. So, Plaquemine Parish and Belle Chase specifically is beneath, but okay. The Mississippi River comes down. Oh, everybody knows how it comes down. Like we all draw the elf when we're, learning geography, and then we follow the river all the way down from North Dakota all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico, right? And the Gulf of Mexico, it actually it creates a shoe-like toe around inside of Louisiana still, and Louisiana's on both sides of the river at that point. But Belle Chase actually is of that area, and I know I'm terrible at explaining this, but if you follow the river around, right after you hit New Orleans, you follow the river around, and right where it starts to curve and become like the underside or the sole of the shoe, if you were calling the river a shoe. Anyway, that area is Plaquemine Parish, which is the Belle Chase area. Now, you have to remember, we are talking swamps, we are talking mud, we are talking swampy, all of those things. This is not somewhere that you want to go without shoes. It's presumed that most people would have on freaking shoes. So where are his shoes? Where do they go? Okay.
If he even had shoes.
Yeah, maybe he did, maybe he didn't, but it doesn't say anything specifically about the socks being torn or tattered or anything like that. It doesn't say, like, they could still tell the colors. So maybe somebody stole his shoes after he died?
I have another question.
Uh-huh.
He's wearing mixed-matched socks, right?
Yeah, but how often do you wear matching socks? Just today does not count. Because there are Halloween socks and they don't count.
I sometimes
You barely wear socks at all, much less matching ones. No, I'm okay with not matching socks, and here's why. If you have the same type of socks, so if they came out of like the same package, I don't care if they match or not, as long as they're the same type. Like they both have to be ankle socks, or they both have to be Christmas socks. You know what I mean? Like
I have batty socks.
Bat socks, right? And
I call them batty
skeletons tomorrow. We were bats last year. Anyway, now around the same time, because this is February, right? What else happens in February? Do you know? In Louisiana, we have a special holiday for it that is literally assigned by the governor. We get a state holiday. The state takes the day off for Mardi Gras. That's in February. Yeah. So maybe John Doe wasn't even from here. Maybe he was from somewhere else and had come from Mardi Gras, and maybe he had taken something or done something during that party time. Because, this is the 70s. Maybe he had something that he shouldn't have, and then I don't know, maybe. And like being 16, 17 years old, especially back then, you were a lot specifically, you had more responsibility is what I mean. What is that? Oh, no, yeah, for sure. We can do that at the very end. Okay. So as much as I would like to believe that, it's hard to say that he found peace because nobody actually knows where the remains are. Yeah. And, what's really crazy about that is that, remember I told you that one of the guys that they thought it might be him, that they sent the dental records, the ones that were really close that matched, they sent those to compare them to the John Doe and Belle Chase, and then they mysteriously were lost as well. So if you have any information about the whereabouts of Perry Ottercorlew, which was the guy with the dental records that match, but the mom said it wasn't him, or the location of his remains, please contact the Crawford County Sheriff's Office at 989-348-4616. Now, other than that, I don't know. I don't know that anything's going to happen with this case ever. I don't know that it's ever going to be solved or found. I mean, maybe but see, this is the thing. We don't know where the body is. We have no idea where his grave is located. So we can't even pretend to hold out hope for a DNA, which may have already solved this case by now, had his body and the location of his remains not been lost. So everybody keep your fingers crossed. And see if, maybe one day they find it. Somebody on the internet. I mean, like it's happened before. It could happen again, right? We'll see.
Exactly.
So, Embree, can you tell these wonderful people that have listened to us ramble on and sound very, very educated indeed? This is our spooky story of the day. This is our Wicked Wednesday topic. The boy in the tree, also known as the John Doe of Plaquemines Parish. So Embree is going to read you now some very important information that you may or may not need for you or for someone you love or know, and they may need it. So Embree, take it away.
All right. The Bayard cousins were last seen in Virginia Beach, Virginia on February 1st.
No, baby, hang on. Let's not do that.
Wow.
We're not going to do that one because we didn't talk about them at all. So here's what's going to happen. I need you to do this one. Right here. If you have any information. We're almost done. Here you go. This one.
It wasn't me, it was him.
That's okay.
He started her mama and came running for the door. We've been outside. We ain't never went to my house.
Okay, that's okay. We're literally, she's reading the stuff right now to, if you have any information about it, then she's going to read all that and then we'll be done.
Come in here for a minute.
Almost done.
Come on.
Oh, go watch Bluey with Daddy?
Nah.
Bluey?
Dad.
Come on, we'll put Bluey.
Or you can go watch Mamushi. Tell Hoppa how to get to Mamushi. Hoppa like the big snake. All right, baby girl. Whenever you're ready, take it away. I'm taking my mic.
Can we do the Virginia Beach too? Like, if you have any information, like.
Well, we didn't talk about him at all. About being a possible identity. Like, we barely touched it. But yeah, go ahead. About any of the cases, this is the number where they can contact.
If you have any information as to the identity of Persimmon Parish, John Doe, please contact LSU Faces Laboratory at 225-578-4761 in reference to case number LSU 22105.
Okay, so read that one more time. You're going to call what number?
225-578-4761.
And the ID for the case number is?
LSU 2205.
Perfect. And so we also want to make sure that everybody knows that in the episode show notes for today's episode, there will be links to all of the resources that you may need for suicide, mental health, all of those things, the suicide hotline, all of that. They actually have a text line now. If you need help, if you need someone to talk to, they're there to listen. We're here to listen. We love you. They love you. Someone loves you. And we don't want you to we don't want you to feel like you don't belong and that that's the best option, because it never is. You are loved. Just remember that. You will always be loved. And that is going to wrap it up for our very first Wicked Wednesday of the Halloween month. And we will be back next week.
We were a little bit late because it's Tuesday, but it's okay.
Mama's going to get it edited, and we're going to get it out, and it's going to be great. Thank you, Uncle Sawyer, for the wonderful background music that you guys are listening to this episode.
Yeah, that's my uncle.
And he did an amazing job. Thank you again. And then next week, we'll have another story, but the next week's story is going to be even creepier. And not because we don't know anything. It's probably more wicked because we know everything.
And one more thing.
Come here, baby.
If you would like to, I can read y'all a Halloween story I can find
we could
online.
definitely do that on Halloween, for sure. Maybe we could do it live on YouTube. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, say bye-bye.
I'll try to go look at my books and find something on the internet or books.
All right, say bye-bye.
One more thing.
Bye-bye. He's waving at the
One more thing. Mom, that's too hard.
Mama, that's too hard. I love you.
We will be making more bloopers.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. We hope you see you next time. See you later. Take care out there. Take it easy, guys. Happy Halloween.
This has been an Elf Audio production.